In terms of, I guess, recap, I don't know. Fox stuff is like it's just hard. Like there's just 5,000 different things to focus on in Fox matchups. So it's hard not to get emotionally distracted by any of them and just focus on the things. Like,
I agree.
uh, I also think like the not having a super clear idea of how and what to practice and how to like how and what to practice is sort of hurting me a little bit in terms of Fox versus Sheik, but I don't know, it like feels more I get like I at least can make myself F tilt now. Like I can if I tell myself to F tilt, like I don't really have any qualms about it, or like I'm starting to see a little bit more this like the ranges where like F tilt is important, like
Yeah.
the ranges where aerials are better, starting to get on the platforms a little bit more. All the things are good, but it's just like putting things together feels difficult because I could die at any time from anything in Sheik versus Fox. And
Yeah.
then I like started watching more VODs again. It's just weird because like all the top Sheiks play well. I don't know, like all the good Sheiks that I really like all have the same sort of basic ideas, but the execution, like their execution is all the way they do it is a little bit different. Like
Yeah, I think they
Swedish
all
is
play
different from
pretty
J Mook,
different.
from Kyle Kudo, from Sammy, from Plup, and it's like I guess like the most recent person I've been watching a lot is J Mook, and kind of he is he's like really good in certain ways, and then in other ways it's like hard for me to understand what he's like he's really down to just like sometimes he reminds me of Mewtwo King, I guess is what is a good way to put it. It's like he's down to just like run up shield sometimes. And he's like he's down to just like guess an F tilt sometimes on the ground relative to where other Sheiks wouldn't, because he's extremely good at tech chasing like in tournament.
Yeah, yeah, he has actual risk reward there that other sheiks wouldn't have. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just like, oh, if he just guesses right on the one time on the F tilt, then like he either actually kills them or he does 60 to them and they're off the level. And it's just like, oh, okay, well, like if you could do it like that, then of course he's willing to do F tilts that feel like that other Sheiks would feel are relatively risky or whatever.
Yeah.
Also, his crouch cancel tech skill is fucking freakishly good.
Yeah, I
So it's
think
just
that's a
like,
big part. His CC tech skill is really what makes him
yeah.
different. But what is so is that like in terms of like picking things to practice from those sheiks? What is the relevancy?
Kinda. It's like I'm like watching Jmook and I'm like, oh, okay, like what could I learn? What could I try to do from him? And it's like, oh, like he's I try to see I'm trying to do CC like him, but like I can't do it because like I just that is something I would have to practice like a lot.
Mhm.
Like, and it's like it doesn't show up in my results immediately. I'm trying to think of other things that I've been trying to pick up from other sheiks.
Yeah. I think that you also might have like a slightly what's it called? Your idea of like how to approach watching might be a bit off because I don't
Yeah,
think
I
that,
agree.
at least in my experience, generally when I like have approached watching VODs with the intent of like learning, I'm like up until maybe I guess I could say recently in terms of like my melee career when I did play, I like didn't look at them. Obviously, I took specific situations or like whiz play mix-ups from them, but I always watched them more with like um the intent to like gain something holistically. It's like I want to like fundamentally understand like a core concept of like X matchup from watching this. And I mean that's how like I've been able to do things like create rules through characters, or like when I play, I have real game plans for every matchup. It's like I want to like I think of watching melee for like a lot of your like melee career as like you really are just building up the foundation, and watching is just a way to get experience without having to play.
Right.
And
I agree with that.
yeah, and I feel like with how you're saying it specifically, with like, oh, um, I'm like trying to take things from Sheiks. I think you might need to like broaden your view, because I don't think what would benefit you the most right now is taking like, you know, ideas in terms of how to play mix-ups from them, but like how they like approach the game overall, and like what makes the way that they approach the game have
Nice.
value, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never really. I think that makes sense. I think being broader makes sense when it comes to watching other people.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't. I I don't. Um, I think when I think the most interesting part of what you said is like, what makes the way they approach the game good. I think I have a hard time like parsing their intentions or like
Mm-hmm.
the reasoning behind certain decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the utility of watching things broadly is a little more uh, feels more inaccessible to me, even though I think that is like probably the most reasonable approach.
Yeah, I think the way that I approach it specifically that I think could make it like easier for you is that I like at the end of the day I was looking at it through the metric of like character to character. And so it's like, what about like obviously the top players do things that they do or whatever, but it's like what about, let's say Fox. What about Fox playing like what are the qualities of Fox playing neutral against, X character, right? And I would like think of it in terms of like if we're gonna use like I don't know, fucking I could scroll up in the fucking lesson chat and look at the Falco rules or something, right? It's like when I was like shaping something like this, it's like what are the points where Fox just cannot do things? What are like and how does he like gain value, right? And I think if you like really just think of it as like what are the things that let me do things and what are the spots that like prevent me from doing things and how do I like, you know, how do I execute it? That's like ultimately what it ends up being. Obviously, it is way more complex than just that, but like,
Uh-huh.
I also think Sheik's different from Fox in the sense that she tends to have way more varied ways to interact with situations, which makes her like more complex in that way. But it's like the core concept still exists, right? You have to be in the position to play out the position, right?
Yes, I think that makes sense, and my maybe I'm underselling myself, but I think my ability to recognize what is and isn't a good position is like there's something missing there. Like
Mm-hmm.
something doesn't feel. I mean, like as I improve, it's always gonna be. I'm always gonna be able to improve on it or adjust it in some way. But I just mean that like I still feel like something is lacking in terms of my ability to like for example when I'm watching you know the idea is like okay be broader when it comes to watching a Sheik or like Sheik versus Fox matchup or whatever, right? And it's like
Yeah.
okay well uh I think my yeah, like my ability to understand like, oh, okay, like this is a position that's really important to the matchup,
Mm-hmm.
or like, or even not that. It's like even the idea of like this is a position, this is something that occurs frequently, feels. I don't know. Maybe I just haven't tried it out enough, but it just feels like it's hard for me to recognize patterns even in that very basic way. Because I think
Mm-hmm.
I'm very focused on evaluating on like, should this happen at all, and not like I don't know. I think I'm rambling a little bit, but I think you might know what I mean. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that I understand what you're saying, and I think that you can't just like. I think that we might have a different idea of what the like experience ends up looking like, because
Sure.
the what. Well, I agree that, or not necessarily agree, but I do think that like there's merit in the idea of like, oh well, I'm not that great at like picking out decisions and like determining if whether they're good or impactful or whatever, right? But
Uh huh.
it's also like ultimately being good at that doesn't really actually matter because at the end of the day, what you'll end up doing is like, you, I guess it's like those aren't like it's not like that's something that you are explicitly you're not looking for situations that are important in a matchup. Like I guess it's just that you end up upon that conclusion with the knowledge base that you
I see.
like acquire. And I feel like what makes me feel like we're thinking of the experience in different ways is that um, I feel like with what you're saying, it's more along the lines of, oh, I'm gonna sit down and watch Sheik Fox and identify important situations. But the way that I see it is, it's like I will just like end up like at that information by looking at other stuff, I guess. And it all kind of just wraps around to the idea of like, I guess there's always just the core idea of mapping out all the mix-ups that your character will play with the other character, and then that will like guide your judgment because that's just like kind of the baseline. And I think that's like somewhat of an unsatisfactory like answer because obviously there needs to be a method at place for doing that. But like, I do think it's good to highlight that that is at least the core ideal behind like everything that we have really talked about. Is it's like you have to build up your knowledge base before like any of the things that are like the level above that start making sense, right? Because it's like,
Right.
I guess it's like you can't know what a good position is if you don't know all the positions, right? You have nothing to like
Right.
base it off of. There's no relative scale.
Hmm.
Um, and I guess if we're gonna get into like how to do that, um, at least in my experience with it, and how I generally think it will tend to play out, is um, at its most basic form, it will literally just be you watching a match and looking at a situation happen, and then just deciding if you know everything about it or not. And if you know everything about it, guess what? You know everything about it. You could just go on with your day. And if you don't know everything about it, then you have to like make an attempt to map it out. Maybe you won't, map it out in its entirety, but you have to like realize that there was some lapse, potential lapse of knowledge about the situation, and then like work with it. And I think that you could either use like just like when you watch, you see a situation play out a way you didn't expect it to like that is obviously just the most clear sign that you don't fully understand it, right? But then there's some situations where I feel like you have to like, even though you might assume that you know the situation well, you have to like really take a step back and look at it, look at all the qualities, and determine like, do I actually like understand what made this situation what it is and how like it would all the different ways it could be played. And like it even ends up. I mean, the funny thing about melee that I guess kind of um, highlights that experience is I don't know if you've ever like heard this when I'm explaining a situation or Sam's explaining a situation. There's almost always like three options that were like this is just nonsensical, but technically it works, right? There's like so many times, and I feel like that is like real proof that you like holistically understand any given situation is when you're at the point where it's like I know random qualities or random ways a situation will play out that are completely unfeasible, but technically do function that way, right? And how I guess how you get to that point is just seeing the situation happen and then loading it up in 20xx and then either like theory crafting, thinking about it specifically, or like just running it through the replay system, right?
Oh.
And it's just like that is just the core of all improvement is just that like cycle. And then sometimes you'll like, you know, you'll hit the point where it's like, oh, I I guess I've ended up working on enough situations where like as I watch, this kind of overarching concept has been made more clear, or this like general application to the matchup is like whatever it is, right? Does that make sense? I know I went on for like a long time and I talked about kind of different things within the same idea, but did it make sense?
Yeah, it made sense and it was a lot of information, admittedly, and think I'll probably I think I'm just as a disclaimer, I think I'm accepting that my ability to absorb information is gonna be impaired this time just because
I mean, you're
of
sick.
my physical circumstance. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it nothing you said sounded like philosophically or empirically wrong or anything. I think I am just sort of just trying to figure out like what would be best to do. Like, Okay, maybe we should just pick like any random
Yeah, how
VOD
about, I
player.
know,
Let's just pick a VOD of a good
yeah.
player, and then we
We
can
pick
start
a
going through
Sheik
it.
VOD, and I will sit here and ask you, what do you think has happened? And then we can talk about what has happened, and then we could figure out what, you know, what you missed and why you missed it.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's reasonable.
Uh, okay, we could pick Sheik versus a Fox. He's way better than. That'll make it simpler.
Yeah.
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
Watch. He like almost four stocks in game one. I've watched it quite a few times. It's fun to
Oh,
watch.
nice. I have not seen this. I have no idea what this set is.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into it. Okay, how about we watch, um, I'm just gonna pause at an arbitrary point, and I want you to be as attentive as you can, even given that you're sick, and kind of tell me what has happened, at its most basic terms. So it's like, Jmook avoided him attacking him on the platform, and we could even be more general than that, but like, I don't think it'll end up being that valuable.
Yeah.
But like, just have general claims on what has happened within the match,
Sure.
and then we could like see where we both line up. Okay, I already saw like 4 things that I have thoughts on.
I saw one thing.
Okay, so what was the one thing you saw?
Jmook was chilling on the platforms until he found a way to get like a safe back air on the Fox.
Okay.
Well, he went from side to top, and then he went like there's like some change of position, like slight change of positions, but like.
But those are meaningful. Those are meaningful.
No, it's true.
Yeah, and so it's like, why do you think he went from side to top?
Because he didn't want the Fox to be able to pressure him from underneath, so he goes side to top.
Yep, I agree.
And then I think he comes down. I think he comes down the other side and throws the needle, so that way he can cover the Fox if he runs in. But he notices that Jmook Justo ran to the corner, so he just throws out a back air, and it's safe. And then he goes all the way to the other side because he wants to be really safe because the Fox is at 0.
Okay, so I agree with all of what you said. That is what happened. I think there's 1 or 2 things you missed, but I think now at this point it is important to like highlight the specific attributes of these things that he's done. Okay. And so the way that I see this is, initially he's on the side platform after charging needles, and he realizes that since Fox dashed forward off the side platform, right, at the beginning of the match, right there, when he's charging needles, he's actually now at front of getting hit, right? And so he shields. And then one thing that he does that I think is really good that you didn't mention is he holds shield long enough to actually check if the Fox did hit him at a timing. And then he decided to move once he realized that wasn't the case. Something he did here that is like a specific mix-up is when he ran off needle, he specifically read the Fox continuing to be dashed into center stage, right? That's like why he would do that. And the other alternatives are like him running off top platform and going to the ground and, reading that Fox from dash to the right. Or staying on top platform and going to the opposite side, right? Does that make sense? Why he would do those things, and that this is like a decision that has intention, like specific intention behind it.
I know what I think when I see this is like, I know what the needles cover, and then that's the only thing that I evaluate. I didn't evaluate the other branches.
And I think
that's probably important.
Yeah, I think that is like, if you were able to see what the needles did and it made sense, that's good. But I think that you also need to like, when you are like, oh, I see those needles, he did them, that makes sense, to also check if like you actually understand the alternatives, right?
Yeah.
Because I like, while watching passively, I was like, okay, well, there's a reason why you would pick any given decision, right? And I feel like his needles made sense, and I was like, okay, yep, I could keep going, but I could have seen him do any of the other things that I said, right?
I think I would not have understood. Well, I don't. Maybe I would have understood. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to check. It's like if he goes. So if he goes to top, he has the choice of going straight down from there, running to the left, or he could go back the same way he came. Um, I think I know. I don't. I know what he could do. I just don't understand which context they would make sense and like what he would be reading if he was doing each of them. I guess. So that's probably
Yeah,
something
and
to
we
think
could
about.
go through that, right? And so it's like what he did specifically was to cover center stage, right? He wanted to cover center stage safely, and if he did get hit, potentially get some advantage. If he were to run off the right side and fast fall through the platform, in some capacity, he would be reading the fox. He'd be reading the fox being in this area, right? Presumably, he'd do something like fast fall through in there, or like fast fall
Fair.
empty land grab or something, right? Or bear, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then if we were to stay on top plat, he would just be playing position more slowly, but I don't think that's necessarily a good thing to do. I think staying on top plat for a long time ends up being greedy, because Fox can obviously just double jump up air.
Yeah.
And then if he were to go off the left side, that just means that he would read the Fox. He read that the Fox would be putting himself under this platform in some capacity and wanted to be completely safe.
Uh-huh.
Right? Does that all make sense? And like,
Yeah.
and those are like essentially the only real decisions he could make. He could like drop from top platform down, but obviously that seems pretty bad because he's landing right on top of a Fox at 0%.
Right.
He could technically full hop on top plat. I don't think that's really good because there's nothing you could hit Fox with that would make that full hop worthwhile. And if the Fox doesn't bite, he's just in lag in the air above Fox, right?
Right.
And then that's like about it for things he would pick. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's like why he would play the other situations out, and that's like something that is important to realize. And we could keep going forward. Other parts of the situation that I think are pretty meaningful. The shield, he realizes he's paying attention while throwing the needles and sees that the Fox obviously dashes forward, right? Or that the Fox is in not that he dashes forward specifically, but that is he is in this range, and this is like still Fox's threat range, right? But he realized that Fox probably wouldn't get hit by the needles, since he was like moving. And so then he's like, okay, well I'm gonna check. And something that he does that's really good is he like actually confirms the Fox's positioning before he decides to bear, right? He doesn't just bear because he's like, I'm assuming the Fox is gonna end up behind me. He literally checked that the Fox dashed forward the way he did, right? And I think that ends up being pretty clear. Yeah, it's like you look how long he's in shield, right? He doesn't like instant shield drop after the needles. He holds shield for like a specific amount of time.
Yeah.
And that is like what made that situation good. That's the important part. Him shielding's good because he could have gotten hit, but then after shielding, he's still, proactively watching, and then he does the spare.
Right.
After seeing that the Fox dashed forward, and then he was able to just hit him, right? And that's like what provides value. And I think that like, this situation within a vacuum isn't even that relevant. It's like, okay, well, you backyard the Fox, for putting himself in a bad position at 0%, whatever. But it's like, the sentiment is that when you watch, you want to like be able to understand that these things are happening literally in real time.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
think
like,
I'm very far away from that, actually.
yeah. And I think it's like, it's not easy. It's not like, I mean, I've been doing this shit for 8 years, right? But it's like, you have to start by seeing a situation happen just generally and being like, I need to make sure that I know what actually like happens, right? I mean, and him hitting the bear is a good example. There's obviously a mix-up, a very specified mix-up at hand. He hits a hard bear on the Fox at 0%. What are the things he could do? He could technically forward tilt. He could technically run up grab, Forward tilt would be reading the Fox dashing forward and not like CCing, so maybe jumping. Dash forward grab would be reading the Fox shielding after the bear. And then what he did, run away, is like, that's like the I do not want to play any part of your aggressive mix-up. And you see how there's no way that Fox hits him Fox just could not chase him fast enough, right? He
Because he has
runs.
a little bit of a frame advantage. Yeah.
Yeah, he has a little bit of frame advantage, and he gets to go away. And Fox like could not hit him before he was able to get his shield up. I do think the Fox had bad tech skill.
Yeah, because he went into walk.
Yeah, but I don't think that would have changed anything.
Nice. That's really good.
And again, it was the same thing with this shield, by the way. That what made him doing the shield drop bear good, even though it didn't hit, is that he turned his back, so he had corner, and then he like saw that the Fox did the thing he did in the corner and was like, oh, now I'm gonna shield drop bear. But then he realized that his bear didn't hit, and he was ready to play a different mix-up, right? This is a different mix-up. This is not like you bearing the Fox. This is now like a completely different mix-up. And it's like, what can Fox do from this frame advantage and positioning? And it's like he could dash dance, he could full hop, and he could run forward running shine or like run forward there, right? And he does the thing that beats the running shine specifically, and it's like, okay, cool.
So
now
you read that running shine?
Yes, yeah, you read it.
Yeah.
And now if we're gonna go back to what we were doing initially, it's like, what what are the things you do in this position, right? What I see is it's like, okay, well, this position, you could either shield, and like if the Fox, overshoots with a running shine, or like a nair slash drill, it gives you the opportunity to like whiff punish it easily just by shield grabbing. And you have real defensive outs if he does other things. So it's it's the less direct way of playing a situation, but you still can get some value. And if he does something like full hop, it's not like you're trapped. You could wave dash back and be safe, right? Obviously, you could just do like turn around walk forward tilt or turn around grab, because if you're gonna read him dash dancing, right? It's it's funny because you know how we talked about like when we like set up 20xx together the other day, or not 20xx, just got up and connected to each other. We went over the core mix-up, right, of Fox Sheik, where they're like at this range, and it's like, what are the things Sheik's looking for? What are the things Fox is like looking for? Why would they do each thing? And it's like it's the same every time, right? And this is like essentially that kind of situation, right? The qualities are slightly different, so the way you play it would end up being like relatively different, but like the core is still there, where it's like, oh, the aggressive options are still the same, the defensive options are pretty similar. What is like the only thing that's like really different is that shield ends up being a lot more reasonable because you're not in a spot where you have like clear advantage or something, right? Or maybe you're closer than you were before. But it is like, ends up playing out pretty similarly. Um, and then obviously if you want to read like full hop specifically, you just do rising bear. It'll intercept them at this like spacing. But it loses really badly to him staying grounded and him short hopping a lot of the time. Um, and then there's a thing Jamuk does where you could move away and try and read running shine. The way you read running shine and like approaching short hop is slightly different, but it will like generally be pretty similar. Like you just have to pivot grab instead of doing the dash grab.
Sure.
But yeah, does that like make sense as like a situation? And was it clear how we were able to like look at all the things that could have happened, and that I was able to like list them off just looking at the situation alone, right?
Yeah, I think I have trouble identifying like what are the other. I think I don't as quickly reach all the different things that he could do in that position as you do.
Mm-hmm.
So there's one, which is, I mean,
That's just
that's just
fine.
you having, that's fine. That's you having more experience. And I think the other thing is, I think when I'm playing, oh, how do I put this? I get the sense that I sort of dwell on mix-ups. I really
Uh,
do. I think it's like I like my brain doesn't like the mix-up happens very like changes in position happen either very quickly or somewhat quickly in melee, and
mm-hmm.
and just I mean it just happens quickly in fighting games in general, but melee especially.
Yeah.
And I think when like okay, like in this position, I think I like habitually or otherwise, I think I just tend to rising bear because I play a lot of foxes that jump
Mhm.
like in that position. But then it's like when I do the rising bear, I think my brain like spends a long time, relatively speaking, thinking like, oh, it didn't work. Now what? But
Mhm.
it's like the ideal is actually I should do the bear and be like, okay, mix up's over, next position.
Yeah, it's
Like it
like
should go much faster.
I think you should have I think if you're running into the issue where it's like, oh, I did this thing, now what's next? Then that's like an issue with your like having the correct plans, right? Because if you have a
Yeah.
plan for a situation, you'll know what like, you know, it's not like when situations go wrong, they generally tend to go wrong in the same type of way just because the given nature of like how things work. And so it's like when you do like a rising bear in that position and it doesn't go right, and you like assuming you don't get hit directly, there's only so many ways it could actually end up, right?
Sure.
Um, and so it's like it is important to also know like what happens after and have that be a part of your plan. And I think with like the dueling on mix-ups thing, um, I've heard you like talk about it, and I would presume that you have that issue, given that. But I think it's just like I think to be completely honest, if you just either knew the situation in and out or felt like you knew the situation in and out, that would like not be a thing that occurs. Because the
Okay.
only time when I feel like I've been like I need to like take a step back and think about the situation that just happened is when it's clear to me that I do not understand it fully, and then I need
Got it.
to spend time doing that.
Okay. That yeah, I have no other remarks on that. I think that makes sense in terms of like all the options that he could do, like um, and kind of how JMO chose to play it. Yeah, because it's like he can either short hop, like approach a short hop out of the corner, full hop, or he can running shine. I mean, I guess he could chill in the corner. Well, I don't know how much room he had. He could dash back, I guess, but
Yeah,
then he
he
gets
could dash dance.
walk F tilted on. That's what you're
Yeah,
talking about. Okay, yeah, that's fine.
yeah,
And then now he tech chases him, right? So, but
yeah. This is just
presumably,
combo.
presumably he combos him. Yeah, yada yada yada. He's really good at this.
I think that dash attack was bad
Because of
because
the percent.
you could just hold down.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Because he's not at 50. He's not at the percent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you could just hold down at that percent. Maybe not,
Oh
but I also think if they like DI away, it's not a good combo either.
yeah. How come that needle missed?
Uh,
Oh, he didn't drift forward after the on the second shot.
yeah, yeah, he like did it really far back.
Yeah, yeah, on that one.
Yeah, that was a good deal on the fair. This is a real setup that she can do is you could do double jump there on reaction to side B, and a lot of the
Yeah.
time it'll actually like hit the correct direction.
Oh, did you just get unlucky on that one?
Yeah,
I do try to do that edge guard a lot though. That bear was cool. So
yeah. It was just the bared side. You could drop bear side B on reaction, like from ledge.
mm-hmm.
But one, I guess.
Shorten around this?
Alright, what's up?
Can you shorten around this, by the way? Just curious.
Well, what he could do is he could just instead of shine stalling, he would just do jump into side B. That's how you'd like deal with that.
Got it.
I guess at this point, you can shorten around it sometimes if you're low enough and you get the right shorten. There's like kind of there's it's relatively inconsistent with different shortens and all that shit, but yeah, you can shorten around this sometimes.
Now he respawn, jukes his ass, goes to the corner.
And we could talk about something I want to talk about is why do you think that when he played this position out when he jumped here that he decided to go to side platform instead of landing?
I don't know. This one I actually don't know.
Oh, okay. So,
I don't love being above Fox.
well, is being above, was he, when he decided to do that, was he like reasonably above, like would Fox have reasonably been below him? It's like, I feel like if we look at like all the like likely outcomes, the Fox wave landing back there is like relatively unlikely. To be completely honest, I feel like I see a Fox do that shine, and I see him
He did
either
that
like
shine. Yeah.
yeah, I see him either like empty land here and like dash dance or like I don't see him doing like this wave land back up till like
Yeah.
that often, right? And I feel like honestly, Jmook doing the bear after the wave land was pretty greedy because he just like this bear doesn't actually. This bear was like intention to hit the exact thing the Fox did, and it still went poorly.
Does he have time to? Did he have time to react to the Fox wave landing?
No. If you look at when he timed his thing, I don't think that was on reaction.
Yeah, he was just playing dude anyway.
Yeah, but back to the waveland. Why I think the waveland is good is that it's just the like inherent position of Sheik Fox, where I feel like being on a platform next to Fox, or like being horizontally somewhat close to Fox, but on a different plane vertically, is a lot better than being on the ground close to Fox on terms that are not your own. Because like being close to Fox is good a lot of the time, but it has to be on your terms specifically. If it's not on your terms, then it ends up being a lot more random. Does that make sense? And or do you like feel that way? Is that intuitive to you?
Okay. I do. It's like you only want to fight like you. If you could make it so that every time the Fox fought you, he had to deal with your F tilt, you would love that. For example, like just as a different example.
Yeah.
Or like if you could make it so that like the Fox like had to either like had to deal with your timing affair or like get out of the way, then like instead of like putting you in a mix up, you would love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, etc. Yeah. Okay.
And the platform gives you an opportunity to like play out a different situation, um, like from a different vantage point.
Right.
I think is good. Now the way Jmook played it, I don't think was very good. It was kind of autopilot, but going to the platform was a good decision there.
Yeah.
Landing and shielding was good. I wish he grabbed.
I wish she grabbed.
This is just like an awareness thing where it's like you see Fox jump at this spacing, he's not gonna like. He cannot drift far enough to like hit you. Is that like clear? He drifted all the way forward, and he just did not even hit the shield.
Yeah, he didn't even. He drifted all the way forward. He didn't even hit him.
Yeah, so I'd like see Fox jump there and already be shield grabbing.
Yeah. I think he was waiting for the drill to hit his shield or something.
Oh, look at this grit for tilt.
Really good F tilt. I feel like I never do this one.
Yeah.
Roll F tilt. He saw the Fox was running forward during his roll, and he was like, "Okay, time to F tilt."
Yep. It's just like okay.
Will he kill him? Will he kill him? Oh, he did the dash check again.
Oh.
There's a way he could have killed him.
There was, but you have to have good tech skill. The way that you kill him here is once you know that that needle hits, you walk forward like 2 steps, turn around, wave dash back to the edge, fast fall, and then do rising bear.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is how you kill him. Yeah. But you have to have. Yeah, you just have to have good tech skill.
Good back here. I thought he might forward air in that position.
I think he like messed up his dash or something because I'm kind of confused why you would even dash here. I feel like if I wanted to read that like he did, I would just simply do short hop back and fair because that is a better hit at this percent/position.
Yes.
But it doesn't matter. He got the kill anyways.
That's cool.
I do feel like he's playing invincibility kind of autopilot-y. Because I think that going to top here is totally fine, but then running off like this just was not. It like didn't really make. He didn't need to. There's nothing that like made him feel like he needed to. Because it's like when he went up, the Fox wasn't even jumping, right? He had like yeah, the Fox was dash dancing, and he like if he really thought he was gonna jump, he could like shield. But then he like runs off like this, and the position ends up being awkward. And the Fox like obviously does something greedy, which is running shine, and then gets grabbed. But I don't think that like should be how it plays out. Like the Fox wave dashed back, which didn't make sense. I feel like I see all of this. That like running shine, wave dash down, and then just like stand still. But he wave dashes back and then goes into the needles. I feel like the Fox played that poorly. I don't think Jmook necessarily did something that great.
Yeah, I thought the needle was a little strange.
The needles were fine. It was the fact that he ran off and then was forced to double jump. Right? The needles are
Yes.
just normal. That's just like what you have to do after that position.
Might kill him here. Oh. He keeps dash checking at that, like at 50 or whatever.
Yeah. Here we meant to forward tilt. For
Yeah.
its worth.
Oh yes, yes. I've made that mistake also. Okay. Well.
Well, he's force stalking him. Nice. This is a classic mix-up. If Fox, this is something that Foxes are really dumb about, but they try and deal with Sheik coming down from platforms reactively, and they do laggy things, but that's not how it works. You don't get to like throw out an up tilt on reaction to Sheik running off the platform and it hits. And that's like a super classic thing that Sheiks get Foxes with, where the Foxes do defensive options reactively to Sheik, and that just like sets up her like timing perfectly. And that's why this like run off empty land dash works. Yeah,
That's good.
it's just super newbie from the Fox. Wow, that upper is really good though.
Oh. Fox dash tech, so troll.
Yeah, it's hard.
Oh, he died.
I don't like that he dashed back here. I like that. I wish he wave dashed back. I think dashing back, Sheik is just like too bad with her back turn close range to Fox. He just doesn't have any options, which is why I like the shield here, because he ended up close range to Fox with his back turn, and it's like I don't want to be in this position, so I'm gonna shield, and shield makes it where Fox has to hard read you with fucking grab, right? And so then the Fox running shines, Ace gets out. This down smash was really horrible, to be completely honest. But then he had bad defense on the roll. He knew that, or he like misjudged and thought that he would get the CC on the up smash, and you can get the CC on that up smash and then grab it, but he didn't, and so then he tried to go for the grab anyways and got hit. Look at these down smashes. If you replace these down smashes with forward tilt, they'd be working. Nice. I mean, this position is classic. I think a secret technique against Fox that will make beating a lot of Foxes easier is if you just time wave dash at a shield for shine, you just like will BTFO them. Whether it's like wave dash forward tilt or wave dash back forward tilt, you can just like get most Foxes like super autopilot their post shine options on shield, and wave dashing after the shine specifically just gets you out. And most Foxes won't do like aerial into up tilt on shield. That's like a pretty specific read. Jump needle.
I get that read by accident. I get that wave dash on accident a lot against Falcos.
I think it's good against both of them. Yep, and he reacts to the height that the Fox is at. It doesn't drop down. Instead, he refreshes.
I've gotten a little better at doing this.
Yeah. And I know that we really only stopped to look at situations towards the beginning, but do you think watching it, do you think you're able to have any general takeaways on why Jmook won?
I think the pattern was that like he did a really good. I mean, the most general pattern is that he did a really good job playing from the platforms reactively.
I agree.
Okay, like one of the stocks he like murdered him on the respawn. Another one of the stocks he sort of played the corner mix up well with the he F tilt he did the roll F tilt and then he killed him from there.
Yeah.
And another one, the Fox side beat off the level, so I don't remember what happened before that. And then some other I think the general pattern is just that he played from the platforms really well, and he yeah, I wish I could remember more than that. that's not sufficient when it comes to my like if I'm watching this VOD to like look for things to practice or like try out in my own play, like there's no chance at being like, oh yeah, he just did a good job on the platforms. It's like not really something that I can.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like what did he do on the platforms that made it good. I do, but for what it's worth, I
Yes,
do like
well,
agree with your
we went
things.
over a lot. I think the thing that we went over the most was that he like he was very uh intentional with his shield drop timings.
Yeah,
Like he didn't just instantly do it. He checked that the fox was moving forward, or he checked that the fox had done some sort of action, and then he did the back air. And then he was aware of the next mix up if it didn't work out. Um, he that was really like there wasn't too much more that happened. That he just like killed him so quickly that like not that many things
yeah, he
happened.
did kill him quickly. I do think one thing is that if we're gonna like take a step back and super generalize it, I feel like if I had to make a singular general claim on what J-Mook did well, I think he did a good job stopping Fox from being aggressive in obvious ways. And that is like, wow, okay, sure, man, whatever. But I think that is like such a core skill to being good at Sheik Fox. Like, because the whole thing with the matchup is that, like, Sheik obviously has a lot of ways to directly beat Fox, but they're inconsistent and hard and high variance, and you have to, like, really
Uh-huh.
play them well. And, like, him that basic claim about him stopping Fox from being aggressive in bad ways, claim or whatever, is like that is like really important. And like
Yeah.
that is like something that's how you will just beat the dog foxes, right? It'll be like, okay, well, he just every time he tried to run in from time a spacing where he couldn't, or timing where it was obvious, or something of that nature, he was like he had the correct idea of what to do. And now, after watching, I think it's pretty clear that the idea, like what he was doing, was like pretty varied. It was like going to side platform, or like reacting well from side platform, or using forward tilt, or making space and then using grab or something, right? Like he was aware of all the different ways of the positions. If you were to read it moving forward, in what way would you do it, right? And that's kind of where like the relevancy of that from when we were watching is when we looked at how the like mix-ups will play out, right? And that like you have to decide what is the way to do that in each given situation that like occurs. And it's not like every time they played a mix-up or whatever, he just was defensive or like Red Fox moving forward. No, that wasn't the case at all, right? It's like, but it is that like you have to look at what spots were the spots where he did the thing he did that like worked, right? Or like
Uh-huh.
when he played a mix up intentionally or reacted well, why did it work?
Uh-huh.
Um, and that's like where you get a lot of value from this kind of stuff. Um, does that make sense?
Yeah, and um okay, so I think I just have to work on being more disciplined about evaluating the different like making sure I really understand a situation. Um let's see what else would be good. I guess it's like mm, I don't have any others. I'm like having trouble recalling the other parts of the lesson, so it's hard.
Mhm.
I think I will probably just have to ask you about this again.
Yeah, that's totally fine. You could just ask. There's no big deal. Um,
Yeah.
uh, I know you did. I guess since we finished this game, I know you did mention like practicing early in the lesson, and
Yeah.
if you want, we could go over at least my process for that. Um,
Yeah.
and then I think
Sure.
that could be valuable because I
Sure.
think,
Let's talk about practice.
yeah. Let me do this really quick. Uh, yeah, I'm gonna load up 20xx and then talk over.
Okay.
Okay. So
1 second.
yeah, take your time.
Sorry, I returned.
Okay. So we could just oh oops. We could use a situation that we found from the J-Mook match, make an example out of. And so the one that I kind of want to pick is the one where he bears the fox in this corner position at 0%, and the fox misses the DI and then does whatever thing he's gonna do, right?
Yeah.
And then it will be as simple as that. And how I go about learning the situations or whatever, is that I will simply just I've not made a save state. I'll set up these positions or whatever, so I guess I'll just make the fox do something like that, and then that should get hit by the there's probably some way to make this bear hard hit. Yeah. Yeah, that is okay. Sure, that's close enough. Yeah, sure. And so we have this, and then it's gonna be the situation or whatever, and then we look, and what are the things that once we've set up this initial, and it creates the spacing, what are this is how I would decide what are the things that I'd want to do. And so I'd look at this and be well, what are what is Fox scared of? Well, Fox obviously doesn't want to get fucking run up grabbed, right? Yeah. And so he might defend against that. He thinks that I might move away, right? And so maybe he'd want to chase me or take space. Or maybe he thinks that I won't play directly, and so that he'd do nothing. And those things are all just the case. And so what I'd do is I'd look at this position and think okay, well, given how I think Fox would achieve those things, or I guess it's I'd really take a step back and look at every single thing Fox could do generally. And so it's okay, after getting hit with the spear, he could literally short hop, he could full hop, he could dash forward, short hop, he could dash forward and stay on the ground, he could dash forward and full hop, he could short hop back to ledge, and he could shield, he could spot dodge, and he could roll, right? And that is just simply all he could do, right? Now, among those things, then I have to be well, which is the most likely? Just when I try and think about risk reward. Okay, well, him doing getting hit by the bear and then instantly doing dash forward nair or dash forward full hop probably isn't the most likely, just given that well, I guess the way that I see it is those are close to level 1 options where it's okay, well, it hits me standing still technically, but it doesn't really actually do that much, right? Sure. And so okay, well, I've kind of established that that's the case, or I feel that's the case given maybe my experience or something, right? And so then I think, what are the other things that are likely? Okay, well, him shielding feels like it makes a lot of sense just because he does not want to get hit more. And if he's if he wasn't expecting to get hit, doing something like shield ends up being pretty reasonable option, right? A lot of people shield when they get hit and aren't expecting it. And sure, it sounds like I may be coming up with this claim out of nowhere, but I also have and you also have this. You have years of experience playing melee that could guide you in some way, right? And I'm sure that the way you feel about however that situation will end up playing out, or what people are likely to do, probably won't be that inaccurate. It'll probably be pretty accurate if anything. And so it's okay, well, shield seems like something pretty common. But then it's well, what if he spot dodges or something, or rolls? Then, well, I think roll probably doesn't really do anything, because if he rolls, it puts him right next to me anyways, which is not what he wants to be. But if he spot dodges, then it kind of beats me doing run up grab instantly, which is okay, then sure, I guess he'd do that. And so we've kind of established at this point that, and then I guess we could just keep going into the mix-up, and then it's at that point, if he's not picking either of those options, then that leaves him doing crouch, staying still, or him dashing forward essentially in some capacity. And so then at that point I'm okay, well, I think him dashing forward actually ends up being pretty common, because if he thinks that he might get the CC, then he's just more bound to be aggressive, right? And this is not even taking into account the fact that I think foxes don't respect Sheik enough to not be aggressive when they're in bad positions, right? But like once you take that into account, where I think a lot of foxes don't really pay attention to specific position learning in Sheik, and they decide to be aggressive, then that then dashing forward seems so much more likely, right? And then we see in the J-move batch, he even dashes forward. And then like really the last thing that he could end up doing is like, full hopping in place. And like him full hopping in place is like, well, it doesn't get hit by grab, it avoids that. But if I do literally anything that isn't isn't anything like literally grab, because F-tilt ends up being delayed, right? Because I have to move to that space.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, well, it probably ends up with him in an awkward position or maybe him getting hit, right? And so then it makes us think that those are Fox's options, and we've kind of mapped out that like him dashing forward in some capacity, him shielding, and then him like doing something like, I don't know, maybe like some attack in place or something that lets him stay in place, or like his most common options, right? Once you've established that, then we like look at those and it's like, okay, well, obviously how I'd beat shield is by grabbing it.
Right.
And now it's like, okay, well, I could beat shield by grabbing it, but is that good risk reward? And I think, well, him spot dodging, him rolling, him full hopping, him all of those things, and sometimes him shining, beat grab. And so it's like, okay, well, those are like, that's a good amount of things, right? And it's not like those things are super unlikely. Now, I guess there's kind of the caveat that you doing like boost grab beats him dashing forward, because boost grab has a like big back grab box, right?
Yes.
And so like that is something good to know.
Right.
But then it's like, okay, well, grab seems like a high risk, high reward thing, since it like just inherently loses to like a lot of things, right? And so it's like, is there a way that I can interact with shield more indirectly that gives me a good position / interacts well with other things? And I think doing something like
Jump.
Yep, it's the thing that I talked about where jumping right next to Fox and you have pressure actually ends up being a good position, because he can't like stop you from like doing this easily without it being like a big commitment. Like him doing like get hit by this bear, instant nair to stop you from like jumping like this means that he loses to literally everything that isn't like immediately moving towards him, right?
Right.
You standing still demolishes it, you moving back demolishes it because he gets pressured, you like doing like, I don't know, maybe full hop or something, or doing like turn short hop, even like that, all demolish it, right? And so it's like, okay, well, I think that short jump actually ends up being pretty good risk reward, because it interacts well with him staying in place and him shielding, and if he does other things, I don't think you get punished directly. Like if he full hops, I think, you'd be able to shield or whatever, and if he dashes forward, he's not gonna like do like dash through you and then like pivot grab or something. That's probably pretty unlikely. And now it's like, I guess I'm kind of rambling on like the things that could happen, and the most important part is like how you figure these things out. Well, it's literally just by like thinking of a thing that a character could do, setting them up to do it in the recording, and then like you doing various options as like Sheik, and then deciding how your things like interact with it, right? That's like the important part. And so like if I wanted to like see how, I don't know, boost grab interacts with fucking spot dodge, what I'd do is I'd have the fox get hit by the bear.
Hey, I have to go.
Okay,
So,
okay. Yeah, we could
can
just
talk about
call it.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
But this was useful. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad. Okay, cool. I'll talk to you next time.